What's up, YouTube? My name is Jasmine. On today's episode of the Slain Project, I'm going to be talking about the missing and murdered Indigenous people from the Yakama Indian Reservation. Now, this video doesn't include all of the cases. If I did, this video would be like 2 or 3 hours long. That's how many bodies show up on this reservation. So if I did miss your loved one, please comment in the comment section their name and just a little bit about them. And in this video, I'm going to be going over some cases from the 1980s. They think that there was a serial killer down in the valley. And then I'm going to cap off the video with the mass shooting in White Swan in 2019. And before I get started, I just want to give a special shout out to Tammy Ayer with the Yakama Herald. She does a good job reporting on these cases. And if it wasn't for her, a lot of these cases would not get any media coverage. And also the Women of the War Cry podcast. They do an excellent job discussing topics that's affecting their communities. And if you would like to see more videos on missing and murdered Indigenous people, please consider subscribing to my channel. Let's get right into it. The Yakama Indian Reservation, also referred to as the Yakama Nation, is one of the largest tribes in Washington state. It is a beautiful place that has been scarred by violence. In the 2019 census, Native Americans made up 1.9% of the population of Washington state, but made up 6% of the total active missing person cases in the state. This percentage number is most likely higher due to all of the cases not being in the system, either by some people not being reported missing or by cases not being entered into the databases. The Yakama Nation alone had 32 open MMIW cases in 2019. These are alarmingly large numbers, a clear indication that something is not right. For decades, the Yakama Nation has endured so much heartache and bloodshed. A historically strained relationship with the FBI and common reservation problems like poverty, unemployment, domestic violence, drug and alcohol abuse leads to a sour situation. Researching through these cases, I noticed a common reoccurrence. The FBI did not even bother to interview a lot of family members of the missing and murdered. The FBI has reviewed a lot of these cases numerous times, but did not feel it was important to interview the people closest to the victims. Let's begin this journey starting in 1971. Janice Hannigan, 16 years old when she went missing on Christmas Eve in 1971. She was just discharged from the hospital after 3 days. She was being treated for several bruises to her head and chest. She walked out of the hospital and never was seen again. I have Janice profiled in my video of MMIWG of the 1970s. I will link it in the description box if you would like a more detailed account. Lasora Yvette Eli, 19 years old, was found face down in a drainage ditch by a farmer along Parton Road near Toppenish on February 2, 1982. Yakama County coroner labeled her death as an accidental drowning, but the FBI says her case is a possible homicide. Celeste Faye Spencer, 21 years old, was found at the bottom of a gully on McCullough Road along the north slope of Autumn Ridge on November 11, 1982. She was from Wapato and was missing for a couple weeks before being found. Her death was labeled as hypothermia and accidental. After her death, her 3-year-old son, Roland Jack Spencer III, went to live with her aunt. Roland was a special needs child and needed a lot of care. Roland was mentally disabled, had epilepsy, suffered from hearing loss, and limited vocab. He could only walk short distances and could go into a coma without his medication. Roland went missing May 25, 1984, near Night Lane and Campbell Road. His disappearance was classified as a non-family abduction. He has been declared legally dead and no trace of him has ever been found. Sarah Winier worked at the Save More grocery in Wapato. At about 3:30 a.m. on July 22, 1985, she was found in a burning car near McDonald Road and a mile from Highway 97. She was in the driver's seat and was so badly burned that she had to be identified by dental records. Clydell Alice Sampson, 25 years old. Her skeletal remains were found on December 28, 1986. She was found south of Granger, and the cause of death was a shotgun blast to the head. Babette Crystal Green, 26 years old. Her skeletal remains were found in the summer of 1987 near Wapato. The cause of death was listed as homicidal violence. Teresa Stahey, 25 years old. Her fully clothed body was found on July 7, 1987. Her body was caught in a fishing net in a canal near Toppenish Creek. She was dead less than 12 hours when found. The Yakama County coroner ruled out foul play and listed drowning as the cause of death. The FBI calls the death a mysterious death matter. Janice Marie Wilson, 20 years old, was from Toppenish. Her partially clothed body was discovered on August 8, 1987, near Granger. Janice died from a severe blow to the head. She was beaten so badly that she could only be identified through dental records. Janice was last seen 4 days earlier at a friend's house where she attended a party. She stayed the night there and decided to hitchhike the next day to Sunnyside to see her boyfriend. A woman reported that she heard screams coming from an orchard the night before she was found. She did not call for help when she heard this and only realized its importance after Janice's body was discovered. In 2009, a grant was funded and DNA was collected from clothing at the crime scene and a suspect was named. Samuel Posada was arrested for first-degree murder and rape. He knew Janice from high school. He was living in Hermiston, Oregon at the time. His DNA was on file because his criminal record in Oregon. In 2011, Samuel waived his rights to a jury trial and had the judge decide his case. He was eventually acquitted of all charges related to Janice's death. Daisy Mae Heath, also known as Daisy Mae Tallman, 29 years old when last seen on August 30th, 1987. Daisy lived with her sister and was described as independent and very resourceful. She knew how to hunt, fish, and survive in the mountains. She frequently traveled from White Swan to Warm Springs, Oregon. She would often be away from home for short periods of time, but would always come back. She was eventually reported as missing on October 29, 1987. Soon after she disappeared, her backpack, keys, and ring were found near Soda Springs north of White Swan. This area is closed to non-tribal members. Daisy was eventually declared legally dead in 1997. I did see in a report that authorities found human remains in late 2008. They were waiting DNA results because they thought it might be Daisy. This is all I could find. If you know who these remains belong to, please let me know in the comments section. Click on the FBI report link in the description box for reference to this. Karen Wallahy, 28 years old when she was last seen at the now closed Lazy R Tavern in Hera on November 7, 1987. She was last seen wearing a denim jacket, pink t-shirt, white shoes, and pink hair barrettes. There is no picture of her in NamUs. Parker Doe. The skeletal remains of a woman believed to be Native or Hispanic were found on February 16, 1988, near Parker Dam. Age estimates vary and have changed over time, but it is believed she is between 20 to 40 years old. She was about 5 feet tall, had black hair about 12 inches long. She was about 120 pounds and was wearing a long-sleeve blouse, lavender pants, brown bowling shoes, and the shirt had a label in Spanish. No cause of death was determined, and investigators think she may have went missing sometime in 1987. In October 2021, Parker Doe's remains were exhumed for DNA testing. The FBI paid $4,000 for this exhumation because they said it is probably homicide and they believe she is likely Native American. The casket was broken, but fortunately, she was buried inside a body bag. This helped protect her body from damage. Her DNA was able to be sequenced and was matched to her skull, which was being held at the King County Medical Examiner's office. Officials are now trying to find a match for her family tree. Joanne Betty John Wyman, 44 years old, was last seen August 1st, 1988 at a tavern in Brownstown and was the mother to 11 children. Her skull and other fragments were found on February 2nd, 1991 in the Mill Creek area southwest of White Swan. She was identified through dental records and the cause of death is listed as homicidal violence. Roselia So Happy was last seen on New Year's Eve of 1988. Her partially clothed body was found on March 13, 1989, in a remote ravine on the south slope of Autumn Ridge, north of Brownstown. She was strangled to death and identified through dental records. Sherry D. Sampson Elwell was 30 years old and was living with a woman in Wapato. Her friend did not see her for a week and called Sherry's mom. A few weeks went by and her body was found on December 30th, 1992 by a group of hunters northwest of White Swan. This area is described as closed to non-tribal members. Autopsy says that she was strangled and her body is described as being sexually mutilated. Almost 2 years after her disappearance and death, her dad, Donnie Sampson, also went missing. He got a call one Sunday morning to go meet someone in the mountains. He never returned. Donnie worked for the tribe and was on the Code of Ethics Committee and was investigating a tribal police officer and members of tribal council when he went missing. His truck was found on October 30th, 1994, near Mount Adams. There was a gun in the truck that did not belong to him. The family was told by investigators that their dad got lost in the mountains. The family does not accept this explanation and believe that foul play was involved. Now, a lot of women have turned up missing or dead at this point. Many have common characteristics like being last seen at a bar, bodies being dumped in the same areas, being beaten and partially clothed. No arrests were made and no suspects have been identified. In February 1993, a Yakama tribal community meeting was scheduled to discuss all these deaths and disappearances and discuss talk of a serial killer. The FBI was invited and did not show up. When questioned about this, Special Agent William Gore said that they did not show up for the meeting because they were not formally invited. Tribal members denied this and felt as if the FBI did not care that their women were being slaughtered. In the 1980s, the FBI in Seattle was heavily tied up investigating the Green River killings. They were trying to identify a suspect. Gary Ridgway was not arrested until 2001. It is a probable assumption that the killings on the Yakama Reservation took a backseat in comparison to the Green River killer. The FBI also stated at the time that they are not sure that the killings on the Yakama Reservation are related to each other or that they are even all homicides. The FBI also stated and continue to claim that all these killings were not the work of a serial killer. But it leaves open the possibility that some of these killings are linked. In 2001, retired BIA investigator Manny Hall said that someone once said that they are either dealing with a serial killer or a bunch of killers. After the murder of Sherry Sampson Elwell, the deaths and disappearances seem to take a slight pause here. It makes me wonder if one person was really responsible for most of these deaths. Did the killer of these women die, move away, or go to jail? Serial killers sometimes get busy with their own lives. Perhaps this killer got married and started a family. But these deaths and disappearances did not stop here. They start to pick up again in the early 2000s and into present day. Most of the earlier killings were all classic MMIW cases. You could see the deaths and disappearances I'm about to talk about transform into more of MMIP cases. Two epidemics collide here: the missing and murdered indigenous people epidemic and the meth epidemic. Mix in the jurisdictional nightmare of Yakama Nation's checkerboard system, and it's the perfect storm. Roberta Jean Rains, 19 years old, when she was last seen July 10, 2001. She was last known to be with a man by the name of Jose Merced Zamora. Jose shot and killed a 17-year-old boy in 2002. He fled to Mexico and was arrested in 2007. When questioned about Roberta, he said they both fled to Mexico after the shooting and they eventually separated. His story cannot be confirmed. Alice Ida Looney, 38 years old. Alice was the youngest of 11 siblings. She did not drive and usually caught rides from people she knew and occasionally hitchhiked. It was reported that Alice had plans to attend treatment before she went missing. On August 14, 2004, Alice's sister Mary and her husband ran into Alice at Legends Casino. After they were done at the casino, Alice asked for a ride to Wapato. Her sister and brother-in-law dropped her off at the Roadrunner store in Wapato just before midnight. She was spotted at a bar after being dropped off. There were reports of her getting into a confrontation with a drug dealer. This account has not been confirmed. Her remains were found on November 30th, 2005, in Sadis Creek under a tree on a small island within the creek. This location is said to be 12 miles southwest of Toppenish. Autopsy said that she had been in the creek for more than a year and that she may have been strangled. Her body was severely decomposed and it could not be confirmed for certain. She was identified by dentals and metal rods in her leg from a car accident. Her death was ruled inconclusive. Anthony Colfax Peters, 56 years old, when last seen sometime in October 2014. His nickname is Tony. Anthony was homeless at the time he went missing and would stay with friends or relatives. He would sometimes go to Seattle for short periods of time. His primary source of income was his monthly tribal checks. These checks went uncollected after he was last seen. Justin Lee McConville was 24 years old when he was last seen sometime in January 2015 in Toppenish. He has native tattoos on both arms and back. He would often travel to Oregon and fish along the Columbia River. There is very limited info on his disappearance. Rosalita Longy was 18 years old when she was last seen on June 30th, 2015. Her nickname is Rose. She struggled with alcohol and drug dependency and was in and out of treatment since she was 16 years old. She was enrolled with the Fort Peck tribe in Montana. Rose was raised by her grandma since she was 2 years old. They lived in Wapato and Rose was at home at about 10 p.m. the night she went missing. She was under the influence and was asked to leave because this was against house rules. She has never been seen or heard from again. Felina Metzger was 33 years old when she was last seen on March 25, 2016. She lived in a trailer on Barks Road in Hara. She was known to be sleeping in the trailer sometime between 2 and 3 p.m. that day. The next day, on March 26, 2016, someone went to the trailer and noticed that Felina was not there. Her blanket was also gone, along with some plastic that was covering some windows. A missing persons report was filed on April 1, 2016. Her body was found on May 5, 2016, near White Swan. Felina was shot in the head. She was positively identified 1 year later. Felina had a child with a man by the name of Donovan Culps. They were no longer together but remained very close. In September 2017, Donovan was arrested and eventually convicted for abducting and killing a man named Cameron Smith from a Cheney, Washington pot shop. Cameron would not sell marijuana to Donovan without ID. This angered Donovan, so he killed him. While awaiting his trial for the kidnapping and murder of Cameron, Donovan confessed to killing a man by the name of Neil Cloud. Donovan learned that Neil and his brother George Cloud were suspected by the FBI for killing Felina. George had thought that Felina was going to tell on him about a carjacking he had done. George had shot a woman in the leg and stole her car at a convenience store in Toppenish in March 2016. Donovan said in June 2017, Neil Cloud drove to his home in Hara. Donovan and a friend of his named George Skyhawk Thompson beat Neil unconscious and drug him behind his trailer to zip tie him. Neil woke up and Donovan stabbed him to death, then slit his throat. They wrapped Neil's body and dumped him in a field in Medicine Valley. 2 months later, Neil was reported missing. His remains were found on September 18, 2017, after Donovan's confession led authorities to the body. George Cloud was convicted for murdering Felina Metzger and got life in prison. Donovan Culps got 34 years in prison for the murder of Cameron Smith and a life sentence for the murder of Neil Cloud. Linda Day was 38 years old. Her body was discovered in February 2017 under a bridge on Highway 97 in Marion Drain Road near Toppenish. DOT employees found her while doing an inspection of the bridge. She was shot in the stomach and had been dead for about 6 weeks. Linda was positively identified by using DNA. There have been no arrests in her case. This is where the murders of Rosenda Strong and Jadida Moreno happened. For a detailed account of these two cases, please watch episode 12. I will link this in the description box. Elias Culps was 24 years old when he was last seen on December 27, 2018 in White Swan. His nickname is E-Dub. Elias was known to be in the tribal jail earlier in December before being released later in the month. He lived with his elderly grandmother and helped care for her. Little else is known about his disappearance. Alillia Minthorn, 25 years old, nickname is Lala. She was last seen by her sister on May 3, 2019. Her sister Tanya said that when Lala showed up to her house that day, that something seemed off. Lala stayed for a while and said she had something to take care of. Before she left, Lala told Tanya, "If I don't come back, come looking for me." This was the last that Tanya heard from Lala. She was reported missing on May 9, 2019. Tanya searched everywhere she could think of. Lala's body was found on May 29, 2019 in a remote location on Autumn Ridge north of Brownstown. Police notified next of kin, but that person did not notify the rest of the family. So Tanya kept looking because she did not know that her sister had already been found, and she was very publicly outgoing about doing this. Tanya thought that authorities should have came to her and told her that Lala was found. She figured that they must have seen her out there looking for her after they found her. A witness came forward in mid-May and told what happened to Lala. The female witness said that she, another female, and a man by the name of Jordan Stevens picked up Lala from a homeless camp near Toppenish called the Compound. Jordan thought that Lala was going to tell on him for an attempted carjack, and he did. So they picked up Lala and drove her north of Brownstown. Jordan pulled out a rifle and shot Lala to death. After leaving the scene, they went to a bar in Brownstown. At the bar, the trio was seen cleaning blood in the car, and Jordan was brandishing the rifle. After cleaning up, Jordan was worried that his blood was at the crime scene. He returned and removed Lala's clothes off of her body. Jordan and the witness were arrested on May 20th. The female witness led them to Lala's body on May 29th. As of this recording, Jordan has been found guilty of the murder of Lala and is still awaiting sentencing. At the trial, the bar owner and witness named Tim Castilla was summoned to testify. He did not want to because he feared retaliation. Authorities had to arrest him to get him on the stand. On June 9th, 2021, he gave his testimony. Tim lived in the upstairs of his bar. 2 days after testifying, the bar was found burnt to the ground. Tim's remains were not in the fire, and he has not been seen since. The FBI and ATF are investigating. Josiah Hilderbrand, 25 years old, and Jon Cleary, 47 years old. Josiah and John were traveling from California and were on their way to a Dead & Company concert at the Gorge Amphitheater in George, Washington, which is about 90 miles from Toppenish. They were last known to be alive on Friday, June 7th, 2019. The car that they were traveling in was found abandoned the next day, partially burned in an orchard at 8100 Lateral B Road near Toppenish. They were missing for just over a year before their bodies were found on August 5th, 2020. Construction workers were near milepost 52 on Highway 97 when they were found under a pile of tires. This area is about 10 miles south of Toppenish. Josiah's mom started a Facebook page called Help Bring Josiah Home. She posted on there that Josiah and John stopped to help 2 stranded people, and that was the last time they were heard from. Tribal members built a memorial cross for Josiah and John and also advocate for them in their MMIP events. The FBI has been investigating this case since they first went missing. Nothing has been publicly released about the case and no arrests have been made. But it is believed to be connected to another case that happened the same day their car was found. On Saturday, June 8th, 2019, 6 hours after Josiah's car was found and 30 miles away in White Swan, there was a shooting just after 4 p.m. 2 men by the names of James Cloud and Donovan Cloud allegedly shot and killed 5 people at a trailer located on the 5100 block of Medicine Valley Road. They were also supposedly in the company of 2 other people. No information has been released about the motive or the relationships between the accused and the victims. Barely anything has been released besides the victims' names. They were: Number 1, Catherine Eno Squachos, age 49. Number 2, Dennis Overracker, age 61. Number 3, John Cagle, age 59. Number 4, Michelle Starnes, age 51. Number 5, Thomas Hernandez, age 36. A few neighbors who agreed to be interviewed for the newspaper said that they thought the trailer could be a drug house. They would see headlights go to the trailer at all hours of the night. One of the shooting victims was known to purchase drugs at the trailer in the past. Thomas Hernandez's girlfriend said that he was uneasy that day before he left home. He dressed out of his shorts and into a pair of pants. She also said that shortly before the shooting, he expressed concern of an act of retaliation on him. Thomas is the cousin of Donovan Culps. If you remember, he was the one who murdered Neil Cloud because he knew that he killed the mother of his child, Felina Metzger. On the day of the shooting, a car stopped by Thomas's house to pick him up. He then ended up at the trailer and was shot to death. Dennis Overacker's sister also gave an interview and said her brother was in a truck with 3 other people when they arrived at the trailer that day. She said Dennis was shot after one of the passengers went inside the trailer and discovered the other shooting victims. Men inside began to shoot at the truck. The driver of the truck was grazed in the head by a bullet, but still managed to hit the gas and get away from the trailer. Dennis's sister does not know if he even knew the people who lived at the trailer. After James and Donovan Cloud allegedly shot up the trailer, they kidnapped one of their victims' teenage sons and demanded car keys. James, Donovan, and their 2 friends forced the teen into his parents' car and drove away from the trailer. The car they stole from the trailer broke down about 10 miles away. The teenager they kidnapped was able to jump from the car and get away. It was reported that James and Donovan fled from the broke-down car and their 2 friends stayed behind. These people told authorities that James and Donovan shot the people at the trailer. There also was a shooting victim reported dead in a car. I am unsure if this was the car that James and Donovan stole from the trailer or if it was the truck that Dennis Overacker was in. So that would make 4 dead at the trailer and 1 dead in a car. After the car broke down, James and Donovan were desperate to get away. A call came into 911 about 4:49 p.m. There was a report of a home invasion and robbery on Evans Road near where the stolen car broke down. The caller said that 2 men showed up with guns and picked up a child and put a gun to their head. They demanded car keys and released the child when they were given the keys. A photo lineup was shown to the victims, and they identified Donovan Cloud as the person who pointed the gun at the child's head. Somehow, only James Cloud got away. It was reported that Donovan Cloud and their 2 friends at the broke-down car were arrested. James was apprehended later after he rolled the car he was driving. When police arrived, he ran into a field and tracking dogs were used to find him. At the time of this recording, their trial is scheduled to begin in February 2022. It is unknown if they will ever be charged with the deaths of Josiah Hilderbrand and Jon Cleary, the 2 concert-goers. It is highly suspected that drugs were the motive behind the shootings at the trailer. If you have any information about anyone featured in this video, please reach out to the Yakama Tribal PD at 509-865-2933 or the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. Your information will mean so much to the victims' families, more than you could possibly ever know. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think about all this in the comment section. There's a lot going on down there, and I do hope that these families could find peace one day and that they do get a proper investigation. And I will see you in the next video.